This is Nicolas Guillot, and this is Kimberly Prost. And according to the United States, they are incredibly dangerous. These two, Washington says, put America's soldiers in peril, it threatened America's sovereignty, and it has undermined its national security. America has deemed Guillot and Prost such a danger that it has banned their entry to the US and it's frozen all of their assets in the country. But Guillot and Prost, they're not terrorists or arms traffickers. They're not corrupt foreign officials or spies. They're judges with the International Criminal Court. And over the past year, America has engaged in a campaign to intimidate them and their colleagues into shutting down an investigation into war crimes and possible genocide being conducted by Israel in Gaza.
And the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority.
And it has made life hell for these judges. Worse than that, this campaign threatens to undermine the system of international law that we've been building for 80 years.
We will never surrender America's sovereignty to an unelected, unaccountable global bureaucracy.
My name is Justin Ling, and this is Soft Power, a show all about diplomacy, security, aid, trade spying, and realpolitik, and how it shapes the world. On this episode, I want to talk about the campaign to undermine the International Criminal Court, and how, unless countries begin sticking up for the rule of law, it just might work. Let's start with a simple question that has a kind of complicated answer. What exactly is the International Criminal Court? Okay, well, the story of the ICC really begins with this guy, Raphael Lemkin. He is, to my mind, one of the most fascinating and important people of the whole 20th century. As a young law student, he was deeply troubled by the Armenian genocide taking place in what was then the Ottoman Empire. Back then, there was no real mechanism to prosecute those who committed crimes against humanity. So he made it his life's work to create some kind of system of accountability for actors who commit crimes on a massive scale.
So you see, as a lawyer, I thought that a crime should not be punished by the victims, but should be punished by a court, by international law.
And you took it up then again when Hitler came to power in Germany, didn't you?
Correct, in 1933.
This was really the birth of international law. Relying on Lemkin's research, the United Nations drafted the Rome Statute, which defined 4 new areas of international law: the crime of aggression, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and finally, genocide. But this was far from a done deal. The majority of nations would still have to get together and vote for, and then ratify the Rome Statute for the ICC to really come into effect. And so in 1998, the nations of the world gathered in Rome to do exactly that. It was not a guarantee that this would succeed, and indeed many countries thought this vote would fail. But Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister at the time was Lloyd Axworthy, and he was instrumental in getting the votes necessary to make the ICC a reality.
And nothing could be more important than holding individuals accountable for war crimes. Because up to then, the judicial system was you could blame countries and nations and governments, but once you moved to holding individuals accountable, it really changed the dynamic. And so when we went to Rome, we had a kind of a double role. One was kind of managing the things inside the hall, and kind of my job and others was to kind of mobilize support on the floor.
The Rome Statute needed to be ratified by 60 states, and in 2002, it hit that milestone. With that, the ICC was born. And since then, it has prosecuted some very big cases. It has detained and is prosecuting Rodrigo Duterte, the former president of the Philippines, for allegedly operating a death squad targeting suspected drug dealers in the country. It has convicted Abd al-Rahman for committing hundreds of murders in Darfur, Sudan, amounting to crimes against humanity. In 2023, it issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, accusing him of illegally kidnapping children from occupied Ukraine.
It is forbidden by international law for occupied powers to transfer civilians from the territory they live in to other territories. Children enjoy special protection under the Geneva Convention.
And these are just a few of the big cases. Generally speaking, the work of the ICC is universally supported by those who believe in human rights and the rule of law. While it's not perfect, this system of international law has been essential in holding people accountable for some pretty horrendous crimes. But there is one case that has been wildly divisive in the Western world, and it is the origin of these sanctions. It began in 2015. That is when the state of Palestine alleged to the court that Israel had committed crimes against the Palestinian people in East Jerusalem, and the ICC agreed to take up the case.
Our people are enduring, and the repeated crimes committed against it, Palestine has decided to seek justice, not vengeance. We seek justice because it is the anchor on which a future of peace and stability can be firmly established.
Now, a little bit of context here. I said earlier the ICC was a complicated body. Well, part of the issue is that the ICC only has jurisdiction over states that have ratified the Rome Statute. As of right now, 125 nations are party to the Rome Statute. That means the ICC has grounds to investigate cases which took place on their territory. Israel is not one of those nations, neither is the US. But the state of Palestine, which is recognized by a vast majority of other UN members, is. Again, this is tricky. Israel does not recognize Palestine as a state, neither does America. What all this means is that Israel has always contested the ICC's authority to prosecute cases that happen in Palestine.
We see here something truly tragic. The lofty goals of the ICC are being turned upside down. The court was founded to prevent a repeat of history's worst crimes, foremost among them the genocide of 6 million Jews. Now the Palestinians are cynically manipulating the ICC to deny the Jewish state the right to defend itself against the very war crimes and the very terror that the court was established to prevent.
That legal fight grew a lot more difficult after the massacres of October 7th, 2023, and the beginnings of Israel's war in Gaza. The ICC has since then widened its investigation and has found credible evidence that Hamas committed a horrifying number of crimes on October 7th, when it killed more than 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped more than 250 others. And it has alleged that those crimes were premeditated. But it's also found that Israel's war in Gaza has amounted to a, quote, widespread and systemic attack against the civilian populations of Gaza. This is a war that has, as of today, killed more than 70,000 people per the Gaza Health Ministry, while independent assessments say the death toll could be even higher than that.
Today, I'm filing applications for warrants of arrest.
And so, given all of this, on November 21st, 2024,
I have reasonable grounds to believe that 3 senior leaders of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Daif, and Ismail Haniyeh, bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of Israel and the State of Palestine from at least the 7th of October 2023. That Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury.
Now, it's important to note that these arrest warrants are not a proof of guilt. Those charged have a full opportunity to defend themselves, and it will be up to the judges of the ICC to determine whether or not they're guilty. Although Daif won't have that opportunity, he was killed in an Israeli airstrike. That aside, all of this is exactly how the system of international law is supposed to work. So this brings me to Kimberly Prost and Nicolas Guillot. A White House executive order proclaimed that any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any American soldier or any soldier of any of America's allies constituted a direct threat to America's security. These sanctions have repeatedly been expanded to include a list of entities which the US says is, quote, engaged in the ICC's illegitimate targeting of Israel, This includes the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories, a number of Palestinian human rights groups, and finally, the ICC's judges themselves. To date, America has sanctioned 8 judges on the International Criminal Court. And these sanctions are no joke. They effectively ban these people from entering the US, freeze any assets they may have in America, and they make it illegal for any American to materially assist them. This can sound a bit nebulous, but in recent weeks, the affected judges have begun speaking out. In November, Guillot spoke to Le Monde in his native France. He told the paper that these sanctions, quote, affect every aspect of my daily life. Every American company, Amazon, Airbnb, PayPal, shut down his accounts. He's now been denied service from banks and companies that are based in Europe that aren't even American. This has thrown his life offline, back to, as he phrased it, the year 1990. Prost, who's Canadian, told a similar story to the Irish Times. She told the paper that she realized the full extent of the sanctions when Alexa, the Amazon Home Assistant, suddenly stopped responding to her. She said the impact on her life has been paralyzing. Prost says the other judges have faced even worse consequences. The child of one of her colleagues had their US visa revoked, while yet others have had trouble sending money back to their home countries and to their families. These sanctions are nothing less than a, quote, attack on the independence of the judiciary and the International Criminal Court's independence as an institution, she said. And she's absolutely right. This is a concerted effort to use the sanctions regime, which was designed to punish terrorists, arms traffickers, corrupt officials, and dictators, to try and destroy a system of international law that took decades to build, and which is supposed to go after arms traffickers, terrorists, corrupt officials, and dictators.
9 elected officials, including 6 judges, have been designated for sanctions by the United States, alongside with terrorists and drug traffickers. Their personal and family lives are being unsettled, and their ability to conduct financial transactions disrupted.
And unfortunately, it's working. European officials, as well as the French government, have condemned the sanctions against the ICC, but they haven't done much else. Reportedly, Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand has criticized these sanctions in meetings with her American counterpart, and she has expressed support for Prost, but she hasn't actually condemned these sanctions in public.
I took issue with the fact that our own government and our foreign minister didn't object to the American sanctions. I thought that was, really, we were silent, which, as the old saying goes, when you're silent, you're complicit.
Apart from those vague statements, that's kind of been it. In November, Le Monde asked Guillot what kind of support he's gotten from the rest of the world, and frankly, he didn't have much to say. What he did say was that the impact of these sanctions will depend on how much other states can mobilize to support him, his fellow judges, and the ICC, but really, there's not a lot of proof that they're going to. He asked a question but didn't really have an answer. Will they support us? Thus far, they haven't. But Europe and Canada and the rest of the world actually do have the power to do something here. They could issue legal orders compelling banks and telecommunications firms and other companies to ignore these American sanctions. But thus far, no country has done this, even though they've done so in the past.
What we are asking are practical measures. What we are asking is action. We need the support of the entire world, but we're in Europe now, and Europe is a powerful structure. The European Union is a powerful structure. They should react as such. They cannot be subordinated to the American policies.
And this is really bad. Not only did these sanctions make it incredibly difficult for the ICC to continue its investigation into these alleged crimes in Gaza, it also frustrates their work everywhere else, from Ukraine to Sudan and a whole bunch of other conflicts. It's also a really stark reminder of just how much power America has to dictate policy everywhere else. And it's a clear signal that the rest of the world needs to think seriously about how they can prevent America from exerting this kind of control. Guillot called this a moment of truth, and I think he's right. He asked another rhetorical question, and I think it's a really good one. Who has the courage to defend human values in the face of barbarity?